Brink. Here. Mayor Jon Freund. Here. Matt Harms. Mayor Council President Polinsky.
Here.
Doug Yelk. Here. Jerry Durr. Here. Alder Andrea Gage.
Here.
Bob Coltis. Here. Martin Redmann.
Here. Thank you. Next order of business is the approval of the minutes from the April 24th meeting. Did anyone get a copy of those?
I did, and I move for approval.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as written, say aye.
Aye.
Same for opposed. Anybody? Okay, passed unanimously. Okay, moving on to citizen appearances. Are there any citizen appearances that we haven't been notified about yet? Outstanding. Seeing none, we'll move on to finished business, which is an update on the consultant.
I'd like to do that, Mr. Chairman. The City Council met in closed session last night to discuss the consultant along with a number of other topics concerning the fire department, the contract, and other items. So I can only tell you limited information. As you know, closed session is off the record and a private meeting of the council. I can tell you that no formal action took place. However, I believe that there was a consensus reached by the City Council to revise the scope of the consultant, which is obviously pertinent to your work since you're going to be overseeing that consultant in their work. I believe there is a consensus for McGrath to be the consultant, but the scope would be revised, and the following points I think would be important for the advisory committee to be aware of. One, the scope would be revised to be a review of current department structure, operations, policies, and procedures. So it'd be a review of what is currently going on in the fire department. There would be recommendations provided that would enhance the department. So that would be bullet point 2. Bullet point 3 would be to develop a plan with clear goals and benchmarks to transition to a 24/7 on-premise fire coverage. So those would be the 3 main points for the scope of service. There would not be a submission of 2 proposals, meaning a city proposal and a Sun Prairie Volunteer Fire Department proposal. So that would be a fundamental change in the scope of work. It's my understanding, talking with the leadership of the city, that revised scope would be presented back to committee of the whole, along with the revised price, because obviously this is a different scope of work, would be presented to the committee of the whole on May 27th for the council to consider and possibly take action on. So that's the update I wanted to provide you. I'm happy to answer questions about any of those items that I mentioned. Beyond that, I would not be able to divulge further detail.
Could you reread bullet point number 2? Was that recommend improvements to? Could you reread bullet point number 2?
Absolutely. Provide recommendations that will enhance the department. So essentially, they'd be doing a review of the status quo, current. That's the first bullet point. So status quo, the current conditions, essentially, and then provide recommendations to enhance anything that they deem appropriate.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anyone have any questions about? Go ahead.
Number 1, we caught operations, but didn't catch the rest of it.
Yep, absolutely. The point number 1 is review current department structure, operations, policies, and procedures. So those would be, it's basically just a review of the department, kind of top to bottom, just to get a feel. And that was already really in the scope of work initially, was to kind of get a lay of the land, so to speak. The second, it kind of flows in a good order. So that's that kind of the lay of the land. Number 2 is once you kind of know what you have, providing recommendations for enhancements to what you have. So what would make it better based on the consultant's expertise and exposure to other departments, other operational things, that nature, and then kind of a vision or path forward to the city council's stated goal of 24/7 on-premise coverage. So it kind of flows nicely down that path. And that scope of work has been submitted to McGrath, and they have been instructed to submit a revised proposal following this scope of work, these 3 bullet points.
I guess the fair question would be, what does that do to the timeline that we're looking at? Because the ordinance, as written, mandates that things move at a certain point, so is there talk on the council of revising the ordinance also?
So Mayor Freund can weigh in. I think the ordinance both outline the scope of work, that will have to be obviously altered, because your mandate was very clear by ordinance, which was the path you were on, and I was assisting you in achieving that path. That path has since changed, and the timeline was always difficult to meet, whether we were on this path, on our current path, or the new path, so that timeline will have to change as well. So I would expect that were the city council to look at hiring the consultant McGrath with this new scope of work, they would do that with the understanding that that ordinance needs to be reviewed and potentially changed.
I would just add, I think that is a given in terms of changing the ordinance. But in terms of completing the project, I think that this is a much more straightforward project for McGrath to, and to probably shorten the timeline in terms of their work. So I guess I don't have any estimate without getting that back from the consultant, but I think it would probably be a shorter timeline for them to complete the work. Obviously, we're getting started later than we probably would anticipate. So we'll
Sure. So with the streamlined process, we could probably keep the back end dates fairly consistent with what they are now, and just kind of move the other stuff a little bit.
I think we'll ask staff to work with those dates, but I think it should streamline the process substantially.
Thanks. Go ahead, Tory.
Is there anything on the fire department side that we need to do, I guess, in the beginning of this process? Just let this kind of run its course?
I don't, to help you with that, I don't anticipate anything for the fire department to do until the council, formally determines this scope change. That's step number 1. And then step number 2 is anything that the fire department feels would help the consultant gain an understanding of what's currently going on, and that would be all in.
Okay, thank you.
And Chief, I'd have to say, with as well organized as you guys are, that if whenever McGrath comes in and says these are the things we're looking for, that's going to be fairly easy for you to turn on. Okay, any other questions about this? Anyone? Okay, great. Thank you. Move on to new business. I don't know of any. Is there any? Okay, next item on the agenda is the fire chief's report. Chief.
All right, just a couple things. We got our engine 1 fixed for the townships. We had some body work done to that. That was a budget item that we had last year, so that is completed. Engine 2 will be going in for the same work in June, which was also a budget item. That'll be getting taken care of. I believe last meeting, ladder 1 was discussed, and that is all taken care of now, correct?
Tory, I got the word today, the parts came in,
Yep.
and in the next 6 weeks it's going to be.
Okay. I just wanted to give you an update on that, and hopefully within 6 weeks we have our ladder back. I guess an update on our new full-time staff. It's working excellent. I think Joe, Arnie, everybody here will just, I can't thank you enough for giving me the full-time staff that we have. It's been very, very nice. Just a lot more things getting done, a lot easier, a lot more progress. Also, our night program is going very well. We just talked about it last night. We've filled every night shift since we started the program. So we are at 100% on it. And I hate to, even say that and break the curse, but it's been going really good. We're also on our night program now. We're also keeping track of when people are coming down. We have that 4-hour window of the station not being covered. Right now, we figure we have that window down to 3 hours. And our strategic planning committee is working on how we can get that down to 0 hours and have our 24/7 coverage. That's our next goal as far as strategic planning goes. As of last month, we had 72 calls compared to 64 calls in April of 2013. And year-to-date, for the end of April, we had 313 calls compared to 276 calls year-to-date in 2013. So we are up on calls this year. And I guess lastly, if there's any stats or anything you guys would like from me from the chief's report, please shoot me an email. I'm more than happy to get you whatever information would be helpful. I said shoot me an email, talk to me afterwards, get with one of us, and we'll get whatever info that's, I'll try to get you whatever I can, but if there's anything specific, just let me know, we'll get it to you. Any questions? Joe, anything to add?
Last month I told you I wanted to talk to you about pre-alerts. First of all, does everybody here know what a pre-alert is? It was in the paper. What it amounts to is, Chris over there, he's the dispatcher. I call in, I have a fire. The first thing they used to do is talk and talk and talk, get the information, talk some more, and eventually page us. Now, Chris takes the call. I have a fire, and they get an address. They put you on hold. They call the fire department and say, you have a call at this address. We get alerted, we start getting to the station, or if you're at the station, you get ready. The dispatcher goes back to talking to you and gets the rest of the information. In the last month, 2 times, I don't know if everybody knows, I live by the recycle center by Bailey Road. Twice last month, I drove from my house to the station, got on a truck before they paged where everything was. I got a pre-alert. 3 times, we got to the station, got in the truck, and left before they repaged. And 3 times, the full-time staff or the night staff was at the house before they repaged. So it isn't so much we are slow. We're slow at getting pages. And we have just dropped our response times drastically because depending on when you say you got notified really makes a difference. Because if you really don't say you got notified until you actually got the page, or is it when the caller took the call? And we're finding those times can be anywhere from 3 to 8 minutes from the time the dispatcher actually tells us we have a call. So if I'm finding out, I've been around forever and so is Arnie, when we come up to these houses and somebody says, I called you 19 minutes ago, we could never figure out how can that be? We were at the station. Well, we're finding out there's a big lag time from the time the call comes in until we're notified. And the pre-alert has made a drastic change. The only problem we have is sometimes they forget to actually page us because we're already acknowledging we're en route and they don't even bother paging and they're working on that.
Okay.
Any questions on the pre-alert?
One thing to add is we're also working with Sun Prairie Dispatch on this with Shar. I've just got Captain Miller working with Shar, and we're going to try to put a similar program together with Sun Prairie Dispatch. So.
Okay. Anything else for the chiefs? Okay, great. Thank you, guys. Moving on to the next item on the agenda. Any reports from committee members or anything? All right. Referrals for future agendas. Oh, I'm sorry.
I did want to, I actually was on a conference call yesterday related to the interoperable radio program, and this may be information for both of you guys in the police department. The anticipation at this point in time, BAINCOM will be coming up for a burn-in period of 30 days starting sometime in July. And should expect that radios should be switching over sometime in August after the 30-day burn-in period to be able to start using the interoperable radio system. The advantage, obviously, is that mutual aid and those types of things should be much easier once that is in place. So Paging is already through that, and they'll be completing that transition shortly.
It's been a long project. How long has that been going on? 4 years, 5 years?
It's been an extremely long project. I've been involved since Dane Count 1 was even thought of, so it is good to have that completed. I think that the proposal that was actually accepted will meet the needs of everyone. Lower price tag, I know that there's been some issues in terms of interference and things of that nature that slowed it down. Most recently, out of county, mutual aid is slowing things down, so they have a workaround, which is what they're going to put in place, so we can bring this up as of the middle of July.
That's great news. Chief, go ahead.
Just something to add on that. City of Madison has joined the MABUS as of yesterday. Is that right, Bob? I believe it's yesterday.
Yeah.
So we will be going into the City of Madison. I'm not going to say frequently, but we will be going to the City of Madison now. We have mutual aided them once. So City of Madison is now on board. We still have some radio problems. They're on different frequencies, but it's good the whole county's getting together here.
And hopefully that issue will be addressed once they do go on the new.
Correct.
Tory,
It's all stepping stones.
Tory, add that we always have 4 in-house.
Yes. When we do go mutual aid into Madison, our 4 people that are in-house stay in the city. It would be volunteers that come to the station. And that's any mutual aid call. People who are on. They're there designed to protect the city and our townships. They do not go mutual aid.
And the only way ever a full-time staff would go is, for instance, say I can stay in the city, and they will not go to the city anywhere unless someone's here to cover our own.
Okay. Great. Thanks. Okay. Any referrals for future agendas? I don't think we're going to have anything until we know what the city council is going to do. Which brings us to the next part, the set the date for the next meeting. At this point, does it even make sense to set a meeting until we find out what happens at the May 27th meeting?
It's certainly up to you, Mr. Chairman. You have the committee essentially has 2 roles. One is, obviously oversight of department operations, so you'll have to decide what interval makes sense to achieve that goal. As far as the consultant goes, what would happen is on the 27th, the city council would have to make a decision. It would then need to go it's at the committee of the whole, so it would go on to city council to award the contract. That contract would need to be signed, and then the consultant would be scheduled to come up and visit with the fire advisory committee. So that may take some time for all that logistics to work itself out. So I think how you would determine your next meeting date would be on your operational oversight responsibilities versus the consultant. So,
How do you guys usually
Quarterly.
So operationally, if we're doing a historical thing,
Or I think we can probably wait until we find out what's going to happen with the contract being signed, and then set up a point that McGrath can come here and set our meeting at that point. So for right now, there will be no meeting scheduled for the future until we find out what's going on with the contract after the city council votes on it. Believe it or not, the only other thing left on the agenda is adjournment. Is there a motion?
Second.
Have a motion and a very quick
I
second.
thought there was reluctance at first.
Yeah. No discussion, so all in favor say aye. All right, we are unanimously adjourned. Thank you, everybody. You know what, I did some of those